And welcome back to Group Therapy. I need to start saying that part first. It is a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News, part of our Livingston Parish weekly series. It is a chance for we here at the News to sit down and have a little bit of a discussion about what's going on around Livingston Parish. We're going to start with introductions. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the News. I'm joined by my fellow editors today, and we're going to start with on the viewer's right.
Oh, okay, yeah, I get confused with the directions. But this is David Gray, lifestyle editor with the Livingston Parish News.
Hey, this is Rob DeArmond, sports editor here at the Livingston Parish News.
And we appreciate these two gentlemen taking the time here on Wednesday morning because Wednesdays are tough for these guys. They are bouncing around to 7-on-7, basketball, baseball, all sorts of stuff going on. But this is the last week, isn't it?
Of 7-on-7, yes.
Is it?
Springfield's got an individual one later on.
Oh, man, that was news to me. Thank God. That's
it rolled by. It was fast, man.
It's hot. Yeah,
rolled
so yeah,
really fast.
It falls off because it gets a little too hot to go out there and do it. So, first and foremost, going to catch y'all up on my end real quick. Would recommend folks go check out the podcast I did with Councilman Jeff Ard on Monday. That ran yesterday, Tuesday, and of course it will be in Thursday's paper surrounding the guerrilla paintball situation. Also have Congressman Garrett Graves discussing a little bit of action going on with the infrastructure bill that's currently kind of ping-ponging, there we go, back and forth between the House and the Senate. They're trying to decide where exactly they're going to land on how much money they want to spend. So those were a few things we had going on this week. Also want to let people know that Mr. Skip Smart received the Bob Easterly Award for Economic Development from Livingston Parish Economic Development. You can check out that story on our website. It'll also be in Thursday's paper as well. Mr. Skip was involved in bringing well over 1,000 jobs to Livingston Parish and almost $5 million in investment, and that was in the 90s. So this guy really got things going for Livingston Economic Development. Of course, we've had a lot of growth since then. So, getting into it, we started with Mr. David with introduction, so we're going to start with Mr. Rob getting into the content today. Got a couple of things to talk about. One, you may have heard of her, Olivia Lackey. I mean, a huge star. Unfortunately, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe her senior season was cut short.
Yes.
Which was unfortunate because, I mean, she was just a phenom on the mound in softball. And took it to the next level and has had a very successful transition.
It's just one of those deals where you sit down and you look at the numbers. 19-12 with a 2.34 ERA as a freshman. It was one of those things you start looking at the season and what she's doing, and this was one of the stories over the summer. I was like, I've got to catch up with her. So she's in Mobile working camps. It's one of those things where she's not playing summer ball for the first time in probably forever, but she's getting a chance now to stay in Mobile, work these camps, and she said it's really cool where she can sit down with youngsters and kind of see what they're doing and kind of impart some knowledge on them, in terms of what she's learned, and just kind of pass that on. I thought that was a really cool deal. We also kind of talked about what it kind of took to get used to the college game and what all it entails. And, when she got there, she said the pitching coach kind of not really broke down her pitching mechanics, but they just kind of looked at little small things that she could tweak and things like that. And that was a challenge. And then getting used to the workouts and the workout schedules. And she said it was a little bit different from Holden in the way they approach things. And it was just one of those things where, you figure out some things about yourself. You don't quit. You just keep working through things, and you become a better player and a better person. And then we kind of, I said, okay, how did it start out for you? And the college debut, she started the season opener against Georgia. You guys may have heard of
them as well.
A little bit, but she gave credit to her catcher for helping kind of calm her down and saying, you're okay. And that was, she said after that, once they used me like that, I was kind of, and she said, I don't want to say this in a cocky way. I kind of knew they might be using me as a number one type pitcher. And that's kind of what happened. She got some saves along the way. And then what also happened, they had a couple injuries on the pitching staff, which, at that point, she's got to kind of open up the door and do some things there. She also pitched. She beat Alabama.
And they were pretty good this year.
So yeah, they're pretty good. 3 hits, no walks, and struck out 6 in a complete game. They won 1-0 there.
Wow.
So yeah,
Bama it says too.
that's that's one of those things. And she said, I'm just kind of looking at the story here. Still, she said the stadium was still at 25% capacity, but it was still kind of loud,
kind of raucous. Yeah.
So she said, you're not thinking about it. You don't really know. You just kind of do what you do and don't really, block some things out and keep going.
And you got to remember about 25% capacity. It may only be 25%, but that was 25% that really wanted to get outside and go watch some sports. So
exactly.
I'm sure they brought 100% energy.
What do you say? Highly motivated.
Highly motivated fans.
Yeah, so that's what you're looking at there. So the big highlight of her season was she beats Appalachian State 4-0, and she threw a no-hitter with 16 strikeouts.
Wow.
And so it's one of those things that I told her, I think it was, if I remember right, it was a Sunday maybe, and I'm kind of just sitting scrolling through Facebook, and all of a sudden you see it start popping up there. So kind of put a little story together, but at the time I didn't get to really talk to her about it. And, she said she didn't even realize she had done it. She said you kind of get in the zone, and, she's like, I'm walking off, and they're like, congratulations. And I'm like, what happened? What did I do? And, oh, you threw a no-hitter. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Great. Cool.
Wonder, so, and she also worked through an injury too, but she kept pitching through it. And just looking at it, hey, I just asked her, how much did that affect you? Is like, it definitely did. But when she first did it, she was lifting and got injured. So the first series, she said it was kind of tough, but by the time the next series came around, they kind of knew how to operate with it. And, and everything kind of changed, and if you were looking from the outside, you probably don't even know she was hurt,
Right.
But that's just one of those things where she said, I knew they were counting on me, so I knew how to go out there and get it done,
So had an opportunity through injuries to the other members of the pitching staff, took the opportunity, worked through her own injury, and put together a pretty hefty freshman campaign.
That's pretty. When you go look at the pitching numbers, their season numbers, they just pop out at you. You can't, there's kind of only way to say it is she was kind of the workhorse of the pitching staff. She got a few saves in there as well, So they
just pulled her out.
They really work with her, and she said that the thing is, it's she said I'm not satisfied. And that's something that if you've ever talked to Olivia at all, that's just something that's kind of ingrained in her, no matter what she's doing, she's not, it sounds like she's not happy, but it's just like, I can do better. It's always, I can do better. And she said she's already going into, or the thing right now is they've kind of told her to kind of rest. It was like, they told her, take a month off, don't do anything, which she's like, that's what I do though. I play softball, and they said, don't pitch. So she's doing some conditioning and lifting and things like that. And she's already, the thought process already begun, hey, look, people have seen me now, so I need to start working on other aspects of my pitching game. So when I come back next year, maybe there's a little something different there that I can maybe show them,
Sure. Yeah. And that's always an interesting relationship between the pitcher and a hitter, especially when you got to mix it up a little bit.
If you've seen it, and that's her thinking ahead, and,
Sure.
and her coach is probably talking to her and saying, hey, we've got to do something different. And I have no doubt, just knowing her, like I know her, she's going to go in there and do whatever she needs to do to keep getting better.
Right. So, moving back local, Olivia was a huge local star, but she is in Alabama. So moving back local, but staying with Holden, or Holden's part of the news. Their baseball coach has decided to take a different position at a different school, which, as you also discussed, might cause a little bit of a domino effect. So let's get started with the Holden coach who will be heading to Walker.
Jonathan Thompson. This was his, I guess, first full season with Holden, and he will be stepping down, or has stepped down as the baseball coach at Holden. But he's going to join the coaching staff with Randy Sandifer at Walker.
Okay.
So just found out about that as we were going out to do the lighting deal, which we'll talk about next week. But that's how I found out about that. And, it's one of those situations where, he's got a chance to primarily what they're thinking is he's going to be, basically handling the pitchers. He was a pitcher in college and things like that. So he's, he said he's just going to, he tipped his hat to Holden, and he said, I couldn't get here without them helping me in this part of it. And, and he's just looking to kind of carry that success over that Walker had this year for them, The vacancy was created because Cameron Pierce, who's been at Walker for the past 4 years, got the head coaching job at Terrebonne High. So that's kind of how that kind of, Coach Sandifer, he was kind of, he said 6 weeks ago, we were talking about what we're going to do over the summer and bringing some folks on. And in the past 3 weeks, he's kind of shuffled a little bit, but it's part of the deal, The
best part of a plan is when the plan blows up,
and it's like they've kind of rolled with the punches, I guess, and it's just kind of worked out. He said Coach Pierce is going to be. He thinks the opportunity here, it's just a great opportunity for him, and he feels like the things that he's done at Walker have kind of prepared him. He said this year they kind of put Coach Pearson in charge of the JV and said, "Here, run it like you're the head coach." So he had that opportunity to do that. He said he's kind of picked up on all aspects of the game, helping him with everything. So he feels like he's pretty ready for it. And he's also looking forward to, working with Coach Thompson there. So, and he said maybe the biggest adjustment for him is you're going from a Class B school where the practices are, and the players, you don't have as many players. So you're going from, 15 to 20 players to running a practice with maybe 60 players,
right?
At Walker. So, he said we've talked about that. And he said that might be a big adjustment for him, but he's kind of looking forward to seeing what he can bring to the pitchers. And, he said, Coach Thompson said he's part of the thing working with those pitchers is the mental approach to pitching is that's what he really wants to kind of work with them with. And that's kind of one of the things he wants to do. So, and preparing and things like that and getting ready for starts and pitching. And I think another thing, Clint Carver was a volunteer assistant coach for Walker for the past few years, and he's not going to be returning because he's doing a full-time job, and he wants to, if he's going to do it, he wants to commit 100% to it, and he just feels like he won't be able to put in the time that he feels like he needs to at this time. So he it sounded like he wouldn't be returning to help him coach. So, and they've also added Ryan Slayton, who is also probably going to help Coach Huntsman with the pitching staff there. So it's
lots of changes,
and it's summertime, and some of these we knew about, some of them we didn't, but like I said, we went Monday to go figure it out, and this is something that just happened really quickly.
Sure, a lot of times it happens that way.
That's exactly what happened here in this situation.
So David,
yo,
you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
You awake?
So quite a bit of sports news there. As we jump over to David, we're going to talk about a couple of news things, a couple of lifestyle things, and we'll let you folks go. I've always found that phrase fascinating. Well, let me let you go. It's always been interesting when people tell me that on the phone. I'm like, sure, thanks. I appreciate your generosity there. So starting off with the news, we actually don't. We have a few things to talk about this week. Not as much COVID news. We're going to start off real quick. Quarter of Livingston Parish residents, or just over a quarter, are now fully vaccinated, full series, correct?
Yes. That was actually last Thursday when Livingston Parish passed that threshold, but now it's 25.3%, and that's about right under 35,000. 34,999 residents have been fully vaccinated, according to the latest report. That was Monday, but like I said, that was last Thursday when Livingston Parish passed the 25% threshold. And while that's, I guess, a good marker, that's still pretty far behind, the rest of the state, and then obviously the nation as a whole, because the state is trailing the nation. So it was just, something that we wanted to put out there in this week's paper, just to let y'all know kind of how that's coming, because vaccinations even though they've picked up in the last week some, and we'll have some on that later this week, even though they've kind of picked up some especially since the announcement of, possibly winning $1 million, they're still pretty far behind where vaccinations were initially whenever they first opened to the rest of the state. That we're still pretty behind where the early vaccination numbers. So yeah, we'll have something on that a little bit later. But yeah, that was really all that was on the COVID front this week in the paper.
So getting into, it's been kind of an interesting flip back and forth. But with Dennis and Cynthia Perkins, at first we thought that they had been divorced, which we covered. They had petitioned to be tried separate, or at least Dennis's side had petitioned to be tried separately. The judge had denied it, but the judge has now gone back and changed that ruling, correct?
Yes, that was last week. There was a hearing last Friday, lasted about an hour, and that was sort of the big news of that hearing was that the judge had changed it, or not necessarily changed her mind. She said she had, before, her reasoning to deny the request for a separate trial was because she said that Dennis's attorney, who, like you said, requested the severance, didn't give specific evidence that the defense of Cynthia was going to be what they use antagonistic towards Dennis. But after Cynthia Perkins' attorney asked for new evidence to be turned over to her to him from the state, for them to look over, that gave the judge some more stuff to look at. And then she said that she had now had that specific evidence of antagonistic defense from Cynthia to Dennis, so that was her reasoning for deciding that they could have separate trials. And the attorney general said, they said that they're obviously going to appeal that decision. I'm not sure if they have yet, but they said if the judge's ruling stays, if they are going to be tried separately, that Dennis would be the one who would go first, and that trial will still start on July 12th, which was when they were supposed to go on trial together. So if nothing changes, Dennis Perkins will go on trial July 12th, and then Cynthia Perkins will be sometime after that. They didn't give a date for when Cynthia's potential trial would start.
And you'll be keeping an eye on that start date, and of course we'll be looking for some interesting stories coming out starting in July with regard to that. So moving into some school stuff before we move over to lifestyle, two pieces of news here. Just want to start off real quick with Denham Elementary, which is on track to open not at the beginning, but during the 2021-2022 school year, and they are on track. You were at the school board meeting where the architect gave a positive report on it.
Yeah, he gave a. They didn't talk about any completion date, and that was one thing that Mr. Joe, because Mr. Joe Murphy, the superintendent, asked Jim Zeiler just for an overview. They came in for a change order, to request a change order on the project to connect something about connecting the canopy from one building to the existing building. So during that, after the school board voted to approve the change order, Mr. Murphy just asked for a brief overview, and Mr. Zeiler said everything's been going well. His exact words were exceptionally well. That they're moving along on the project. I mean, this is going to be this is going to be the parish's first two-story elementary school. Obviously, that'll be the first. There's going to be another one whenever the mega Southside campus opens, sometime in the future. They're already got construction going on that one, but that was really the update. It's going well. That it has not been affected by there's this material shortage that's been going on since COVID hit with builders, and that's kind of been raising the prices in construction. And Jim Zeiler said that they actually are good since they got in building before this shortage happened, that there's nothing as of right now that's not on schedule for them to get or obtain. So everything seems to be going well at Denham Springs Elementary. So we'll be losing our neighbors pretty soon, I guess it looks like.
Yeah, sometime in the next 6 months. Also in school news, the board approved the hiring, I guess you can call it, of 3 new school resource officers. And there's a couple of interesting things about that. First and foremost, if you can, please talk on the fact that they're trying to reduce the number of campuses that each one of these, is it campuses or campus I?
I said campuses.
I'm pretty sure it's campus. It's kind of a joke. I'm pretty sure it's campuses. But they're trying to reduce the number of campuses each individual SRO has to cover.
Yeah.
But they are keeping an eye on the financials. So kind of give us an overview on that.
Yeah. Well, they had a budget and goals committee before the most recent school board meeting, and Wendy Gill, I believe it was, she's the risk coordinator for the school system. She every year they go over the SRO program. I can't say that, which is as of currently there are, I believe, 10. There are 10 SROs in the school. You have 8 from the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office and 2 from the Denham Springs Police Department. And like I said, they manage the schools. There's, but that is 10 managing 45 schools, and it gets a little tougher in the rural areas. Wendy Gill said during the committee meeting that there is one SRO that has been assigned to the Albany Springfield area, which is that's 7 schools alone right there in that area. So her recommendation, which she gave them 3 proposals. Her recommendation was the third one, which is to hire 3 new SROs, that would put one SRO, a new one at Springfield, which essentially gives one to Albany because now they don't have to split up anymore. And Devin Gregoire, who was part of that committee meeting, who represents the Albany district, he said, that's sometimes, and if you go out there, that you'll know this is true, that can sometimes be a 15-minute drive, from Albany to the Springfield area, and in these emergencies, every minute counts. So that's where one SRO will go. But like I said, it's essentially giving 2 areas new SROs because now their SROs can be focused. And then another one would be going to the Walker area, which, as we all know, and something Miss Wendy pointed out, is Walker High is like a little community college now. All the the big project they had over the last few years. So that new SRO would be responsible for Walker High, and then Westside Junior High, which is across the street, and then the Literacy and Technology Center, which is down the road. And the previous SRO that had been managing all the Walker schools and now go to the other ones. Your North Corbins, Walker Elementary, South Walker. Those away from those schools that are concentrated on Florida Boulevard. And then the other SRO, the third one that would be hired, would go to Live Oak. So because that area is growing a lot, and that high school is getting bigger, and that's something that Wendy pointed out is the high schools in any area are generally going to take up most of the time of the SRO. That's just where most of the stuff is going on. But it's important to have them at the elementary schools as well, because she said you never know when emergencies are going to come up. And that's something Jan Benton, a school board member who used to be a principal teacher, worked a whole life in education, kind of pointed out, sometimes during emergencies, they'd be waiting for an officer to come that's 30 minutes away, and sometimes you don't have 30 minutes. So yeah, and the good thing about the program is, Rob, if you go up a little bit, I believe, sorry, y'all, I'm looking at Rob's laptop just to get a little more background information, but I believe the cost for the 3 is $117,000, I believe. I could be, it's more than $100,000, but, or it's essentially going to be around $40,000 per officer. But the good thing about it is that the school board members pointed out, if it doesn't work, and this money will come out of the general fund, but if it does not work out, that's what she was reviewing this SRO programs on 1-year contracts. So if it doesn't work out, they said they could change and adapt it next year. So, I mean, but it was something that all school board members were on board with. None of them opposed this. Everyone said this was an obvious solution to a problem. And it said, they said that this is something that is much needed. And like I said, little risk, since you could, in a year, you could get rid of all 3, or, doing it down to 1 or 2, or keep it the same. So.
Or add.
Yeah, add.
If necessary. So thank you, sir, for those updates. We've got two things to talk about real quick before we wrap up. Grand Country Junction, much like the Arts Council here in Livingston Parish, is starting back getting shows going and things of that nature. And anything you'd like to say on that subject?
No, they just had a show, like you said, the it's kind of like the Arts Council we talked about last week. They had a show last month, and that was just their second show since COVID hit. And I mean, it was a packed house. I mean, I used to cover those shows every now and then before COVID, and you would have some nights where you'd have more people than other nights, but I mean, this night, and from what they said about the first show back, I mean, it's been near sold out both times. So yeah, just showing people are ready to get back out, listen to some music.
And then last but certainly not least, Lane Hardy Watch is back.
Oh, yes.
And Mr. Hardy is going to be on The Bachelor?
Bachelorette.
The Bachelorette.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Which means he'll be one of many competing for one.
No, his days of competing are over, but he will just be performing his new song. It's a love song, Memorize You, and that, yeah, it's, but if you connect the dots, I mean, let's be honest, that's all it is. It's The Bachelorette is an ABC property. American Idol is an ABC property. Hollywood Records, who Lane Hardy is signed to, is an ABC property. So they keep all those people together.
Gotcha.
So yeah, there you go. If you want to connect the dots to it all. So yeah, but he will be on The Bachelorette next weekend, and it'll be actually good for people because he appeared on American Idol near the end of its last season. People were upset he didn't get to perform a song. Well, this time it is said that he will be performing a song. So if you were upset last, I know there was a lot of people who were upset that he didn't perform, that he just kind of appeared on the show for a minute and then walked off on his merry day. But he will be performing his new song, Memorize You. And he also has, he has a tour that he just announced recently. So, I mean, it's a lot of big news for Mr. Hardy.
Yeah, and good for Livingston Parish.
Yes.
He's got quite the following here. That's good stuff.
And that show is Monday. It starts at 7 p.m. on ABC. So if you want to watch.
Oh, yeah, ABC. So thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate the updates. I know those of you who are listening appreciate it as well. We appreciate you joining us. We're going to let these guys introduce themselves on the way out. And this time, we're going to start on the viewer's left, my left.
Hey, this is Rob DeArmond, sports editor of the Livingston Parish News.
And this is David Gray, lifestyle editor with the Livingston Parish News.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys joining us and listening today. Appreciate these two gentlemen taking their time to give the update. Please remember we're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.